Alone Again, Natura-Diddly is one of those episodes of The Simpsons that impacts future episodes. Some episodes can be a standalone and you can take them out and nothing changes, but with this episode there are things that happen that absolutely affect certain episodes in the future, and that's something that I always find really interesting. With that in mind, there will be spoilers in this discussion. Usually I don't give spoilers in Simpsons discussions, but with this one I kind of have to. That being said, I don't know if it is a spoiler. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. This is the 14th episode of the 11th season, and what happens in this would have taken me by surprise. But when I said I don't know if it's a spoiler, that's because I knew what was happening. I knew... Okay, spoilers from now. I'm not going to pussyfoot around it anymore. I'm going to be blunt and say what happens. I knew that Maud was killed off. I don't know if at the time it would have come as such a great shock. I think it would have been. But because I knew it was happening, I was kind of anticipating this episode, but I managed to avoid the reason, or rather the effect. I didn't know what the effect of that would be, what the aftermath would be like, and I also didn't know the cause. I didn't know how she died, and to be honest, the way she was killed off is ridiculous in true Simpsons fashion, and I think it works very well. They haven't gone with something too relatable. So they haven't gone with, a car crash or a serious illness, which I think might have stripped the humour for a lot of people, whereas killing her with a t-shirt gun is less likely to have ever happened. I can't say it's never happened, but the odds of you having experienced that same thing and therefore having a really traumatic experience with this episode are a lot, significantly reduced. So I think they made the right decision there. And the episode is very busy and it's very quick. So we know that Homer is basically responsible for her death, responsible for the fact that she couldn't be resuscitated in time as well, which is something that I actually think I kind of forget quite a lot. And it's all about Ned. First of all, Homer trying to force Ned to look at other women straight away, which I can understand what he was doing. He didn't like seeing his neighbour, admittedly perhaps even his friend, being so distraught and grieving, and he wanted him to find a companion. I get it, but at the same time, a little bit too soon, Homer. The other side is that Ned's also questioning his faith, which is a big deal. And I think there's definitely an element of relatability there for anybody who's ever gone through anything traumatic, if you have faith. Where you think, well, I'm a good person, or I've done the right things. Why are you punishing me this way? And it's so difficult, and I think it's understandable that faith can be questioned like this. And it's difficult to see with Ned, because I really like Ned as a character, and I don't want him to be questioning his faith. And then what happens with him going into the church, and then obviously meeting a new person, and we think there's a glimmer of hope there. And I won't say what happens with that character. I don't know why, because I said I'd give spoilers, but certainly that's something that I think works very well. There's an element of potential that they don't fully go into detail with this particular episode, and they leave some threads left untied for future benefit. So it is actually a very busy episode. I didn't expect so much to happen in the episode where Maud died. But again, if I thought about it, narratives or plot points don't really continue across episodes apart from the very occasional two-parter. Are there any two-parters? Now that I've said that, I'm not sure if there are. But certainly most things wrap themselves up within 30 minutes, and this is what we get here. But of course, the lasting effects are ongoing. There are many episodes where Maud is discussed, or where Ned being alone is the centre of the narrative, and it works very well. The reason why Maud was killed off, if you're unaware, is because of pay disputes. There's some interesting information on Wikipedia if you take it with a pinch of salt, but apparently, according to Wikipedia, Maggie Roswell was basically fed up of having to spend a fortune flying from her home to LA, where she was recording The Simpsons, on a frequent basis, and apparently she'd asked for a pay rise from $2,000 to $6,000, and Fox apparently offered a $150 pay rise. Now, there were compromises, and then there's just a slap in the face. Now, I don't think she needed a $4,000 pay rise per episode, because plane tickets are not quite that expensive. Not even today, never mind back then. But 150, like, if you went, can I have a $4,000 pay rise? And they went, we'll give you $150. That's not really a compromise, is it? That's a bit of a slap in the face. So I can understand why she quit. Because if it's just not financially viable, and it's, I imagine, very emotionally and physically draining having to do this week after week, then yeah, I understand that. And I think it was a pretty good decision to to kill off the character and to have this emotional episode that actually does have a lot of meaning to it, rather than just automatically giving the character a new voice. She is voiced by Marcia Mitzman-Given in this episode, because obviously they needed somebody to voice her before she died. But I think the right decisions were made for this character. I think it's a shame that Fox couldn't shell out a little bit more money than $150 an episode, but never mind. It's a good episode. I wasn't sure what to expect from it at all, but I definitely think it delivered, and I think it's a pretty strong credit to the 11th season.